So,
I think it goes to show how they balance their collection. Goes to show where their focus is in their demographic or the audience they're trying to attract. Like for example, you mentioned Maud Lewis and the fact that that her exhibition's kind of a high point and a constant in their collection.
Absolutely
represents the fact that it's a business and they're trying to get people in the door.
And it's also a critique of the role that conceptual art played in Halifax, which sort of turned its back on community. In some ways, turned its back on the local community, and it was an internationalist.
Going over the head of institutions like that.
Yeah. So I thought that was really, one could say, hindsight is 20/20.
Part of my second question would be: in your opinion, is there any way these two types of institutions, as in major public funding museums / galleries and artist-run centers, could work together more to benefit the public?
I think in a real way they already do sort of work together. In that a lot of the work that is eventually shown in a museum or an art gallery, publicly funded art gallery, starts out being shown in artist-run centers. So a lot of that younger work, maybe, or just more.
So like stepping stones.
Yeah, but I have a problem with. I think that's just the way they already interact. Whether or not that gets acknowledged is another thing.
They kind of insist there's a hierarchy to it too.
But that's what I'd like to not emphasize. Like I think that let's put them on the same horizon. I think it's not a stepping stone to. I think it's just it's a lateral step. It's not one it's not hierarchical in that way, in my mind. Because the only difference would be profile, I guess, for a wider audience, as far as numbers go. More people would just because of the presence. And I guess that's something that should be considered, talked about a little bit more about who artist-run centers are for. If you're talking about public, I'm talking about audience. And who do you think they're for?
Primarily for the artists, but I mean both are open to the public and both essentially get their funding from the same sources, and in some cases they're competing for funding, and that can be a problem too. But that's like a whole other issue that's outside of either of their control.
Let's actually have a discourse around, what it means to have a training program, what it means to have this type of service to artists, to people in the community. And that's where the important discussion on education comes in. Because nonprofits, since the beginning of their existence have actually been a type of educational institution, but the alternative kind, the kind that is a little bit more horizontal as opposed to vertical. And what I mean by that is that educational institutions tend to operate from a particular site, and your education is segregated, if you will, to that site, to that vertical space. But horizontal education, or horizontal kind of academy, sorry, I'm French, academy, is much more about, the widespread of education, that you can get a certain type of education here at CFAT, but then it will inform the type of education that you get maybe at the AGNS, maybe that you get at, you know, a workshop or a talk or a lecture someplace else at eye level, for instance, you know, etc. So this idea of, you know, education as existing on a horizontal plane becomes extremely important in nonprofit because we operate collaboratively throughout Canada.
But anyhow, the big question, I guess, for this institution, I guess, is its funding. It needs a lot of money.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's not going to be doing very much of any kind of thing. And I think, well, this is sort of what I also talk to other people who are more politically aware than I am. But I can see that this is right. It should be the umbrella organization for all and everything cultural, I guess, which goes on. And then it should have the power to, support individual artists, but also the Nova Scotian art institutions in general. So there's some body which knows what's going on and how it all connects and can therefore make a very fair, I think, distribution of the funds, you know, so it all works, rather than some get it from here and some get it from this government agency and some gets it over here and nobody knows who is doing. It will make it much stronger, I think, to
and that
have
would that would alleviate some of the competition for the funding as well.
Yeah, that too. I think when you're little, you have to kind of bond together and get strong that way.
I'm learning right now that it's a very necessary thing to kind of compensate for the situation in the city. If, you know, for local artists, you've got to have some sort of way of collecting symbolic capital.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Well, if you look at your own rites of passage, you know, what you're aggregating over the course of your BFA degree is experiences and training and skill development, intellectual, challenges and so on.
As well as networking.
Networking, yeah. And that is aggregating symbolic capital that can be balanced off against the tuition that you're paying. And it's accumulating at a faster rate than you're paying tuition. so that when you get out, that degree may provide you with access to other symbolic capital and real capital.
Well, like any smaller place in North America, well, no, I think in Halifax's particular geographic location, it is isolated. I find, and because of that, it sometimes gets forgotten. Or the only time it's remembered is when, in a nostalgic way, for a good old conceptual past, which really didn't last as long as the Traffic Conceptual Art Show is claiming it did. It was more like 4 or 5 years of accolades. And the thing is that when you look at it, it was the reputation for Halifax as a hotbed was because of visitors.
And that's really ironic, and it's actually come up quite a bit in my pursuit or interviews. Not only the traffic exhibition as an example, but that time period as an example. And it's interesting you mentioned you know, that the school, you know, the school we're involved in has a reputation based on foreigners, essentially, and there's always been I think maybe not necessarily the majority, but you know, a large percent of the active artists in Halifax are typically not from here. And
but I think that makes, if you really,
could be a benefit too, of course.
But any vibrant place has people passing in and out of it. I think very quickly a place becomes static or insular if it's just the same group of people talking about things in a way that could be quite slow. It can be, I think the injection into any community of a visitor becomes a catalyst to new conversation.
So I think what I want to say is that I guess how economy is related to the arts has not been studied in, I think, a kind of proactive way. I think that, you know, by comparing the arts to the economies of an industry is kind of wrong, I guess. It's not, because it's not our mandate, most specifically, and we are constantly being validated by how much we contribute to the economy. But we contribute to culture and to heritage much, and to communities much more.
And how do you value that?
Well, the thing is that it does have huge repercussions in terms of our economy. We bring a lot of money to Nova Scotia, but it's not measurable in the same ways. But they're using the same, you know, same tools to measure us as they are, like, to tourism, which is
monetary value,
just like very direct monetary value. Yeah. But, you know, we provide jobs to people. We really do. Like, we hire a lot of people throughout our year, you know, that otherwise would be on unemployment or in the service industry, for instance, you know, which can be linked to tourism, which is wrong because it should be linked to culture, you know. The contributions like that, like I don't want to see artists fall into the tourism industry, you know. That means that they're maybe working at fast food places, you know, instead of art centers.
It would be nice if the city was a little more what do you call it, kind of positively inclined towards that sort of whole creativity which exists here and how actually it can strengthen the community. But I think we need a new city government before that will happen.